Hello, ladies and gentlemen, it is I, your heartbroken but favorite apostle, Robert A. Enos, lead apostle of Greater Works Christian Church here in Lancaster, California. And, the reason I say I'm heartbroken is because I'm sure everybody knows of this by now, but there was this court case between Karmelo Anthony and Austen Metcalf. Karmelo Anthony stabbed Austen Metcalf in the chest. I believe it was right in the heart, killing Austen Metcalf. Now, I want to talk to you about this because I'm just heartbroken about all of this. I'm just heartbroken about this because it's a sad statement for what we have become, where we have evolved to as a people. And, I know a lot of people are making this about color, and I'm not blind, ladies and gentlemen. I know the color of skin. When I look in the mirror, I know what I am, and I know the color of my slightly salmon, not pink, salmon color. So I'm not blind to this, nor am I trying to be blind to it. But at the same time, I'm a believer in this because I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. I know we did not evolve from some kind of lower life form. We were created by a loving God. And that loving God, he himself is not black, he's not white, he's not Asian, he doesn't look like us. But he created us in his image. And when you look around all of mankind and you see the different types of human beings that were created in God's image, you understand that God is so, how can he describe him? I mean, he's indescribable, but he is a lover of and a creator of all these different variations, even with among mankind. There's one human race. I know a lot of people like to know there's the black race, there's the white race, the brown race. No, there's one race. We just happen to have different skin tones, ladies and gentlemen, but there's one race created in the image of God. And when you put that together, in that sense, you realize just how magnificent God is. But nonetheless, I'm not here to give you a theology or a doctrinal sermon today, but that might just fit into it. So when I'm looking at this and I'm seeing this, I am not seeing white against black. Okay, I really am not. Again, I'm not blind, but I am not seeing it as a white against black issue. I'm looking at this as an issue of righteousness and wickedness. Okay. Anyways, so about a year ago, I believe it was in April of last year. Oh, by the way, today is June 10th. It's 2:33 p.m. right now. So last year around April, so this has been going on for just a little over a year, there was a track meet at a high school. I believe it was at a high school. But nonetheless, there was a track meet, and they had the stands. They have stands around the track. And in one portion of the stands, they had this kind of a tent set up for one school, and they had a tent set up for another school or for the opponents, something of that nature. Anyways, so it turns out that this gentleman this young man, this teenager that was murdered, Austen Metcalf, was in a tent for his school. And so Karmelo Anthony was in the wrong tent, and I still don't have all the information in this. Like, were they both part of the track teams from opposing schools or something like that? I don't know, because to me, that's not even really what matters. It just is that Karmelo Anthony was not supposed to be in that tent. And as it turns out, Austen Metcalf told him to leave. You don't belong here. Get out of here. And as it goes, I'm going to give you the short version. There was a little bit of a scuffle, and then Karmelo Anthony, instead of leaving, pulls a knife out of his backpack and stabs Austen Metcalf. Like I said, I believe it was right in the heart. And he didn't die right away, but he fell back into the arms of his own brother. I believe they were twins, and died in the arms of his brother. And of course, Metcalf throws the knife, trying to, I don't know, get rid of evidence, whatever, and then takes off, and they catch him. And now he's been convicted to 35 years in prison. The verdict just came out, I believe it was 2 days ago, but nonetheless, 35 years in prison. But he's eligible for parole at 19 years, I believe it is. So he's going to serve 19 years, and you know how things go in our crazy judicial system right now. That might change. I don't know. I don't know enough about that nonsense to know if it can change or anything like that. But as it sits, he's going to serve at least 19 years. 19 years for murder, ladies and gentlemen. And this whole thing is heartbreaking to me because, well, I mean, just honestly, my heart is broken for Karmelo Anthony. Because what would possess a young man, I believe at the time he was 17, now he's 19. So at 19 years old, he's convicted and sent to prison upwards of 35 years, but a minimum of 19 years. What could possess a young man to put himself in that situation? Let's assume for just a moment that he was in the wrong tent and didn't realize it. I mean, you would think he would when the opposing team is filling that tent. You would think, but when somebody says, hey, you don't belong here, you need to get out, go to your own tent, that he would look around and realize, I'm not in my tent. I'm in the wrong tent. Oh boy. Oh my gosh. I should leave. He should have got up and left at that moment. What possessed him to sit there and argue with these other team members, with Austen Metcalf? What would possess him? And I say possess because that's basically what it was. And then when you really see what's been going on, especially after they read the verdict, you realize, now we know what possessed him. Again, before anybody thinks this, and I already know this because I know that crowd. I know the left. I know that wicked spirit. I'm going to take flack for this. Okay, I've already been called racist over non-racial issues. I've been called bigot over issues that have nothing to do with bigotry on any level. I've been called homophobe, xenophobe, what other phobe have I been called? And I know I've said this before, but I say it just because to me, it was funny. It was like a badge of honor. I was called a speciesist. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, I went from racist to bigot to homophobe to xenophobe. I'm not even sure what that is, but a xenophobe, even to a speciesist. I mean, I am climbing the ladder, in that area. I mean, a speciesist. And I was called a speciesist from a vegan. They didn't eat meat. I eat meat. So I'm a speciesist now. I think they meant that as a put down or a cut down or something like that. Didn't bother me. I'm a speciesist. Hey, I'll eat certain species, not all of them. Anyways, so I'm really heartbroken over this because this is, again, to me, ladies and gentlemen, to me, believe me or not, this is not about white or black. This is about right and wrong. This is about good versus evil. I don't know the Metcalf family, the family of that young man or that young man that died. All I know is from the testimony that I've heard. I didn't follow this all year. It just came out, so I started reading up on it and everything. See, when it first happened, to me, it sounded like there was 3 people in that tent. So there was just Austen Metcalf, his brother, and then Anthony. Yeah, Karmelo Anthony. That's the way it sounded like to me. Now, of course, I didn't go digging. I didn't. Maybe I should have, but I didn't go digging any deeper because I wasn't following. I don't necessarily follow things like that unless it's something that really captures my attention, which it did in the immediate, of course, because of the tragedy behind it, but not so much in the sense that I just waited for the verdict. And then the verdict came out, and it was funny because the other day I was thinking, you know what? what are they doing with that? Are they in court? Are they close to it? Is there going to be a verdict soon? And I didn't even look it up, but then all of a sudden, like the next day, boom, it's all over the place. And then that's when I started getting because that's when, the court transcripts and they're talking about the testimonies that were given and all of that, you get a better picture. So basically what happened, it wasn't just 3 people in that tent or around that tent, but there was many witnesses, and they all basically said the same thing. Oh no, this Karmelo Anthony was basically there looking for trouble. What they were floating before, like I said, when this first happened, he was just a good kid defending himself. Well, then they go, and of course, when they're doing their investigation, it comes out in court and everything, because you can't always do that until court, and then you let it all out afterwards. This guy was not a nice kid. You see some of his Facebook posts or his social media. I don't know if it was Facebook. Social media posts. He's posing with an AK-47. He's giving the bird to the camera. Was not a nice kid. And you think, what happened in that young man's life? Because that was all 17 years old or prior. What happened in that young man's life that created that much hatred and anger in him that he was willing to murder somebody over being told, leave this tent, you're in the wrong place? Anyways, the point is, he was not defending himself. There was nothing to defend himself from. He should have said, yes, I'm in the wrong place, grabbed his stuff, and moved. It's as simple as that. You know what? I was at a game once, and we had okay seats, but about a quarter of the way through this game, about a quarter of the way, we were well into the game. I noticed there were some great seats in front of us, a little bit closer, a little bit better, you could see better and everything like that. So we decided, hey, there's nobody there. Let's just go down there and sit there. Whether we should have or shouldn't have, we shouldn't have, because those weren't our seats. We didn't pay for them. But nonetheless, we found ourselves in those seats. We were a little bit happier because we could see a little bit clearer and everything like that. It wasn't even that much better. It was a few rows in front of us. It was just closer to the edge of kind of like, like that balcony where you could see more, a little bit clearer. So we took it. And about, 10 minutes later, this group of people, hey, you're in our seats. They were very, 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 very late. Very late. I mean, they were so late. So we looked up and says, oh, yeah, okay. We'll give you your seats back. And somebody asked, well, why were you guys in your seat? Well, we saw that they were empty and nobody was in them, so we just decided to take them. We're just a few rows back. No big deal. No harm, no foul. Not our seats. Take your seats. And we moved. I didn't argue with them. I didn't fight with them. I didn't sass them. I didn't dare them. I didn't, stab. I certainly didn't stab anybody. So can you imagine being in a situation like that where like, oh yeah, I'm in the wrong seat, but who cares? I'll stab you. I'll kill you. That's absurd. That's ridiculous. That is evil. But this young man at 17 years old, when this goes down, it's like, what was in him that could create such evil and so much hatred and animosity? And I'm like, I'm racking my brain, clearly, it comes down to this. It's like somewhere, somehow he was broken as he was being raised up. So most likely, not always, but most likely his parents did a really horrible job with him. But I don't know. I don't know the situation. I don't know where he's from. I don't know what he's raised up like. Then, as it got closer, and I started seeing this, especially after they started showing this, especially after they read or they said, hey, we're done. He's guilty. He was convicted. He's guilty. Even before they sentenced him. Then they started showing the, what would you call it? The protests. And then it started to become clear. Ladies and gentlemen, let me just give you all, and this goes for everybody. White, black, green, yellow, purple, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter who you are. your actions say a lot. So if anybody was wondering what really got into Karmelo Anthony, what made him respond this way to a request, even though that request may have been tough and firm, get out of my tent, to stabbing and murdering somebody, look at who raised him. Look at who his parents had around him, because he was still a child, and he raised up. So his parents were responsible for bringing, for allowing, whether it be family members or friends or acquaintances around him, that really bred this kind of hatred and anger in him. They showed a video of a protest, and this is like a middle-aged man. This is not like a little child. This was somebody who appeared to be, I don't know how old he was, appeared to be 40-ish, maybe a little bit older, but somewhere around there. He wasn't a child. And he was yelling such things in defense of Karmelo Anthony. And let me ask you, I'm going to tell you what it is, but think about it. Would this cause you... let me just tell you what he says, then I'll answer the question, or ask the question. He was saying, a dead cracker is a good cracker. Oh, there's no good crackers but a dead cracker. Things of that nature. Dead cracker is a good cracker. There's no good crackers except dead crackers. Speaking of Austen Metcalf, this other 17-year-old young man that was murdered, killed by Karmelo Anthony. So somebody in support of Karmelo Anthony was yelling, the only good cracker is a dead cracker. Now, let me ask you, ladies and gentlemen, regardless, doesn't matter who you are. I mean, just honestly think about this for just a moment. I don't know if some of you saw that, but if you saw that, okay, this young man murders this young man, and now the supporters of the murderer are yelling things like this. The only good cracker is a dead cracker. Would that suddenly make you just go, oh my gosh, yes, that is true. We've got to support this murderer because listen to this guy over here who is supporting the murderer. We've got to get on his side and chant with him. The only good cracker is a dead cracker. We have to do this. Oh, my whole vision, my understanding, what I believe about this has completely changed because of this guy saying the only good cracker is a dead cracker. Come on. Think about it for just a moment. Did that gentleman do Karmelo Anthony good or harm? Did it help or hurt him? And I would say that about it. That to me was just like the pinnacle of the nonsense. But I'm looking at a picture right now on my screen. If it looks like I'm just looking over here, because I'm looking at a picture on my screen of a protest that was taken for Karmelo Anthony. And I'll get to that in just a moment. But again, I don't look at this as a race issue as much as a sin or an evil issue. And before anybody says anything, I was going to look this up, but I knew it would turn this, probably 45-minute to an hour-long podcast into a 2-hour-long podcast. But some years ago, and it wasn't super long ago, just a few years ago, there was this black gentleman that was jogging. He was out jogging, and then these two white redneck, what would you call them? Community militia guy, whatever you want to call him, chased this guy down and then eventually killed him. Shot two of them with I believe they both had rifles. Shot and killed him, and they were both sent away. I don't know how many years. Like I said, I was going to look it up, but again, just for time. And so these two white guys killed this one black guy who was simply jogging. There's a little bit more to the story, but not enough. I got a little more insight on it working with the some law enforcement. And so basically, there was a house in this particular neighborhood that was being worked on, and it was like the never-ending project, and the people in the neighborhood said there's always having problems at this house, like people walking in there stealing tools and stuff, because these workers or whoever was responsible for it just never got the house finished. So it was this eyesore and this huge problem. Anyways, the gentleman's running down the street, this black gentleman running down the street. He sees the house. Now, I don't know if he's from that neighborhood or not. Irrelevant, really. But he sees the house and he decides to go kind of walk up there and look around a little bit. Now, before anybody says anything like, well, oh, so he got what he deserved. No, he did not. He did not. I couldn't tell you. I am the lead apostle of a church. I've been in the ministry for the last, close to 40 years of my life. I've been in the ministry on one level or another. Not quite 40, but close to it. And I probably would have, if I was jogging, but I wouldn't have been because I'm not much of a runner, but if I was driving by, walking by, and I see this house, especially if I'm somewhat familiar with it, why is it taking so long for this house to get finished? I would probably walk up there and just poke around. I wouldn't steal anything, and neither did this gentleman, by the way. And I would look around. Curiosity. I know curiosity killed the cat, but curiosity would get the best of me, and I know I would go up there. Why? Because I've done it before. No problems, no issues. Actually, there was. Let me tell you a little thing about what happened with me. So I used to work for the water department here in this area. And there was this tract of homes that they were just sticks. They were being built. And it was lunchtime. So I decided to pull off the main road, get into that neighborhood that was being built, park there and eat my lunch. So I did. I parked there on the street. All the houses around me were still sticks, and I ate my lunch. I had some more time, so I said, I'm going to just go in there, and I'm just curious. I'm going to just go up there and look around a little bit. Now, I'm working for the water department in an official capacity, all right? I had the right to be there in the sense of, because we have water there. So anyways, I just looked around, walked through one a little bit. It's just sticks. I didn't steal anything. I didn't break anything. I didn't do anything like that. I walked out. And as I started getting back in my truck to drive away, this car whips up there and this lady gets out. Yeah, Karen. But this lady gets out and she supposedly worked for the company that was responsible for building and selling those houses. And boy, she was going off on me, yelling and screaming and everything. She's going to call my manager and everything. And I said, ma'am, I just was looking around. I didn't touch anything. I didn't steal anything. There wasn't anything to steal. I said, I was just looking around. As a matter of fact, and this is the truth, I was interested in those houses, what they were going to look like and be like, because I wanted to purchase a house and move from where I was at. So anyways, I was looking around, and this lady was just off. She wouldn't hear it. Get out of here. You're trespassing. I'm going to call the cops. And then finally, it just got to that point where I'm like, I'm done arguing with this crazy lady. And she was just going off. She just didn't ask me. She didn't say, hey, by the way, could you please leave? It just invites people. Nothing like that. She was flipping the gasket. So I just stood there and go, call the cops. Because I had every right to be able to be at least on the street. Call the cops. She didn't. She was just trying to get me to go. So I understand this gentleman jogging by, looking up there and going, hey, I wonder what's up there. So as the story is, he goes up there, he comes out, continues his jog, and then these two guys, white guys with guns, chase him down in a truck. All right. And I don't care how fast you are, the truck's going to catch you at some point. They did. They cornered him. And these two guys are approaching him, getting in his face, yelling at him. He didn't steal anything, by the way, from what I understand. And they ended up shooting him. Okay. A little bit more to the story, but not much more. There was a tussle. He tried to snatch the gun away from the first guy's hands, because he's afraid. He's scared for his life. And then he gets shot and killed. Horrible. I think both of those guys, if they didn't, they should go to prison for a very, 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 very long time, for life, at least life. So it's not, to me, again, it's not about trying to stick up for anybody because I happen to share the same skin color. And that's what bothers me the most about all of this. This isn't about right and wrong, ladies and gentlemen, anymore. In America, not everybody, but many people have forgotten just the basics of right and wrong, good and evil. And they support or condemn based upon skin color. And that's, I hate to say it, but that's what's happening here in a big way with this Karmelo Anthony and Austen Metcalf issue. So I want to read this to you. I have to remember to put these up on there so you can kind of see it. But as you can see, I know I'll put it up there. It says this. This is the headline of the story, and this was published today, June 10th, 2026. So this is pretty much fresh. And this is written by Amanda, hopefully I can say this name, Prestigiacomo. I hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I'm not very good with pronouncing names because they're so unique sometimes. And I never like to butcher somebody's name because it's disrespectful, but I'm trying, so forgive me. It says, I don't use this kind of language, and I'm not going to use it now. So I hate to say it like this. You'll just have to use your imagination to kind of fill in the blanks. But F. Austen. It doesn't say it right there. It has the F, the asterisk, CK, Austen. Exclamation point. Karmelo Anthony supporters harass, threaten friends of slain teen outside of courthouse. So they're supporters of Austen Metcalf, the young man that was murdered, supporters there. And when they come out of the courthouse, there's this group of protesters that are yelling F. Austen. They threaten the friends of this slain or this murdered teen outside of the courthouse. And they also were yelling, I hope he burns in hell. They weren't saying this about the murderer. They were saying this about the young man that was murdered. I hope the man that was murdered in cold blood burns in hell. In many circles, ladies and gentlemen, this is what we have become. In many circles. And that's why I'm heartbroken. That's why I'm heartbroken. I am heartbroken that a young man was murdered. I'm just as heartbroken that a young man's life has been destroyed over what could have been just really nothing. Walk away. But he wasn't taught that. That's not the way he was raised up. And this is proof. This is a sad statement of what this young man, Karmelo Anthony, was raised up in, what he was trained to be like. This is sad to me, so sad on so many different levels. Anyways, let me read this. It's not a very long article. I just want to read this to you. This is from the Daily Wire. Supporters of convicted murderer Karmelo Anthony harassed slain teen Austen Metcalf's friends as they left the Collin County Courthouse on Tuesday. Anthony was convicted on Tuesday. Oh, so that was just yesterday. He was convicted yesterday of murdering Metcalf at a track meet. A track meet of all things, ladies and gentlemen. He was Metcalf on a track meet in April 2025. So just a little over a year ago. And was sentenced to 35 years behind bars. F. Austen Metcalf. I hope he burns in hell. Anthony supporters yelled at Metcalf's teenage friends, according to reporter Brianna Morello. Tamara Neely, who's been reporting on the Anthony murder trial, said Metcalf's friends were surrounded by a large group of Karmelo Anthony supporters when they left the courthouse. Members of the group shouted F. Austen and said they would piss on his grave, Neely was told. They also shouted at Metcalf's friends, who are teenagers, should be dead, and spit at them. They were yelling at the friends that they should be dead as well. Regardless of anyone's view on the case, no grieving teenager should be subjected to harassment, threats, or degrading treatment while leaving a courthouse, Neely said. And I agree. Doesn't matter who it is. One friend of Metcalf's, who appeared to be a minor, posted on X. Doing this, again, I don't use this language, so I'll just say it like this so at least you get the idea of what he says. Doing this poop or crap at us for no effing reason other than us being there to support our dead friend. No effing respect at all when we have been friendly to everyone, regardless of what side of the case. Journalist Sarah Fields, who was in the courthouse every day of the high-profile trial, asked others to not share the video of the harassment. Okay, so journalist Sarah Fields, this is a journalist who was at the courthouse every day of the high-profile trial, asked others to not share the video of the harassment, since it shows the faces of grieving minors and identifying markers, presumably license plates. So she didn't say this to protect anybody. I mean, she did, but like she says, don't show this video of these supporters of Anthony, Karmelo Anthony, harassing the friends of Austen Metcalf. Don't show it because they don't need their faces and identifying markers out there. In other words, she's clearly concerned for their safety beyond this. According to those involved, individuals screamed that they were glad Austen was dead and followed and filmed them from the courthouse steps all the way to their car, Fields reported. The incident has been reported to law enforcement, and I have provided the identity of the streamer involved to the family. What have we become, ladies and gentlemen? And this is a we. It's not a they, it's a we. These are all people in the United States of America raised up under the same flag. And this, you talk about a division under the same flag in the same town, in the same city. These are people that, again, this was a track meet. So although they may not have all gone to the same school, they are all pretty close proximity, at least in the same county, most likely many of them in the same city. These are neighbors. Many of them were probably friends before all of this happened. How do you square off and even support? No, when I'm not talking about giving moral support in the sense to somebody who's facing life in prison or who had murdered somebody, especially mom, dad, close family, close friends. Hey, we're with you. But how do you do this? Do this on this level? How do you say, F Austen? How do you say things like, oh yeah, I'm glad he's dead, I'm going to piss on his grave? How do you do that? How do you do that? This is far more than just supporting your son or your cousin or your friend. This is vile, wicked hatred. This is having no real care for life. They don't care that somebody was murdered. People in this picture, I can't see it too close on there. Let me see if I can bring it up here, ladies and gentlemen, on my computer so I can get a better clear so I can read this honestly to all of you. So there's these supporters, the Karmelo supporters, not just supporting. Hey, we love you, Karmelo. See you in 35 years. I'll be waiting for you. Mom loves you. Dad loves you. Things like that. It's nasty stuff with F words and expletives. One holding up a sign, Free Karmelo. I understand the sentiment, ladies and gentlemen. You don't want to see a loved one going to prison for 35 years. But he was a murderer. Why would anybody in their right mind, now mom, dad, close, siblings, things like that, I understand it. But why would anybody else in their right mind, even mom and dad, want the court system to release a murderer out onto the streets? From all the testimony, from everybody, even what Karmelo testified and what he said, it's clearly that this young man had a lot of anger, vitriol in him, and this did not help. I don't want this guy out on the streets. Anybody that could so easily murder somebody, another kid, at a track meet of all places, could find it so easy to shove a knife into his heart. I don't want him out there. I don't want to free Karmelo. Because who's next? Who's next? Oh, I watched as some people were saying, oh, he just made a mistake. Why are you punishing him for just making a simple mistake? He murdered somebody. That's not a simple mistake. 2 + 2 = 5. That's a mistake. You can use your eraser, erase the 5 and put a 4 and fix that mistake in about 10 seconds flat. You can never fix this so-called mistake. There's a young man, 17 years old, that was murdered and died in the arms of his brother right in front of a bunch of witnesses that have to carry this for the rest of their life. This is not a mistake. There is something deeply broken in that young man, and it breaks my heart because no 17-year-old should ever have that kind of anger or hatred within him. His parents failed him. The community around him failed him. And instead of taking responsibility for their own actions or inactions, let's blame even Metcalf, who was the one murdered. Let's blame all the white people. Let's blame everybody else instead of taking responsibility for their own actions. This morning, earlier this afternoon, I just opened up Facebook just to see what's going on in the Facebook world. And a bishop so-and-so, I'll just say it like that. I don't want to give his name out, but Bishop so-and-so. Now, this is somebody who claims to be a Christian and a bishop of a Christian church or organization, was coming against the young man and the family that was murdered, propping up Karmelo as if he was a saint, and demanding that he be released because of things such as slavery. Now, granted, I've said this many times. Slavery is probably the greatest blight on our history. Something that no true American is proud of. And we should never, ever go back to that on any level. But it's also over. This has nothing to do with slavery, ladies and gentlemen. None of the people that are in this picture that I'm looking at right now are slaves or were slaves. The Metcalf family, they are not slave owners because slavery is abolished in the United States of America and has been since, when was it? 1864, I believe it was. Something like that. As a matter of fact, we're about to be celebrating Juneteenth when it was announced that slavery is over, and I believe it was in Texas when they did that because they didn't get the message, but they sent couriers down there to say, hey, slavery is over. So it was that kind of that final drive and push to end slavery, and we're about to celebrate that soon. So how can this... The excuses that people make, and listen, it's on both sides. It's everybody tends to want to do, not every individual, but there's groups. We blame that group over there for our problems. We blame that group over there for our problems, not taking responsibility for their own issues internally. And this is just showing it. Who would be out there holding up a sign saying, free Karmelo, when Karmelo's a murderer? A cold-blooded murderer. Anyway, it wasn't self-defense. Anyways, I'm besides myself in this because this is how it gets created, and then another young person's life is ruined. So instead of looking inwardly and fixing the problems inwardly in the individual and then in the family and in the community, blame everybody else as we continue to raise up and produce this kind of human being that ends up either dead or in prison. But as long as we can blame somebody else for it. Mom and dad never taking responsibility for their actions. Community never taking responsibility for their actions and changing some things and making it better. Now, when I say that again, I'm not trying to paint with such a big brush that it's every person that looks like that, because I could say that about every community everywhere. But it's a big enough problem, at least right here, that when you go and you say free a murderer, or there's no a good cracker is a dead cracker. Come on. How long, I mean, how many days, weeks, months, years was Karmelo around that in his home life? No wonder it produced what it produced. I mean, I blame Karmelo in this sense because he's the one that did it. He was certainly old enough to understand the ramifications of his actions. So he has the blame first and foremost. But I also blame mom and dad. Mom and dad. Why? Because that's what they allowed around their son. My point is on that is, listen, parents and even grandparents, aunts, uncles, friends, family, in-laws, outlaws, we've got to get this thing together. Every community, regardless of what you want to call that. You know, you can call it, a city, a neighborhood, or you can call it a racial community, the black community, the white community, the brown community, every community, everything what we call community. Listen, get rid of the nonsense, get rid of the knuckleheads out of your community, because they're going to end up turning sometimes your own children into a Karmelo Anthony. My heart breaks for him. He did not deserve the upbringing that he got. He did not deserve to be around this. He was just a kid. And this is what mom and dad allowed and brought around him, raised him up in. And look at where it left him. These other people aren't in prison. He is. Mom and dad's not in prison. Karmelo is. This crazy guy that's going around saying a good cracker is a dead cracker, he's not in prison. Karmelo is. It's like all of their nonsense landed on him. He acted on what they showed him and what they put into him. And now he's going to prison for at least 19 years, possibly up to 35 years. My heart breaks. My heart breaks. That's another life snuffed out. Austen Metcalf was murdered, yes. But Karmelo Anthony, he died as well. And who killed him? He's not physically dead, but you understand what I'm saying. Who killed him? His mom, his dad, his community. And now what? He's going away in chains. And they're standing behind a barricade still screaming profanities. Isn't anybody stopping? Because I am. Stopping long enough, taking a deep breath and asking the question, why? Let's get down to the root of it. I would hope so, and I hope they do. I hope this causes a huge turnaround in all of them. But at least for Karmelo Anthony, it's too late. Now, if he survives prison, and let's say he goes the whole 35 years, he's 19, let's call it 20, just to make the math easier. 35, 45, 55, he'll be 54. If he has to serve the full 35 years, he'll be 54 when he gets out of prison. Like I said, if he survives 54, he's still young enough to do something with his life, but 35 years of his life will have been destroyed over an incident at a track meet about him being in the wrong tent. Who taught him that is in any way acceptable to pull a knife and thrust it into the chest of somebody who just wants him to get out of his space? I'm beside myself and I'm brokenhearted, because you know what this is also doing? This is breaking down in many ways breaking down that, not barrier, let me put it this way. It's creating a barrier between races. Racism now is going, and please see, It's the white people. He's admitting it. No, it can be on both sides, but right now, at least, I don't know what's going on behind doors, closed doors. Don't know what's going on behind closed doors. So I can't speak to that, but I can speak to this when I'm watching videos of a gentleman getting in the face of somebody else yelling a good cracker as a dead cracker. What do you think that does to race relationships? What do you think that does to those people and race relationships? I'm heartbroken over this whole thing all the way around. Back to the gentleman that was jogging through the streets and got shot by these two white rednecks. Okay, it's kind of a flipped. See, it happens on both sides, but it's kind of flipped. What do you think that did with race relationships? You know, it's... You try, you work to build a bridge and to tear down the walls and build bridges and meet in the middle, and then over something stupid. Why? Because we can't get our stuff together and deal with our own stuff, that we're pointing fingers. The guy that was jogging through that neighborhood, from what I understand, from what I was told, what I know, he didn't steal anything, do anything necessarily wrong, other than go up to a house that was being built and look around a little bit, and then continue his jog. Then the sidewalk militia thinks it's their job to get involved and I mean, come on. If they really thought he was doing something really bad, call 911, call the police, give a description, let them deal with it. They didn't. They hunted him down and eventually shot him. When's it going to stop? And I'm talking on both sides. When's it going to stop? When are we going to finally come together and understand, that's not my enemy because they don't share the same skin tone as I do. It's not my enemy. And the problems that I face, they're not the cause of the problems that I face just because they don't share my skin tone. And that goes on both sides. It's cowardice to blame people for your problems. It would be cowardice if I blamed others for my problems simply because they don't share the same skin tone that I do. And it works on both ends. I, for one, choose not to be that kind of a coward. Well, I don't want to be any kind of coward, but you get what I'm saying. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, I had a lot of other things to say. Maybe I'll do a second podcast while I'm at it and get some things done. But this really, it's heartbreaking to me. There's a young man in the ground, murdered, and another young man behind bars, ruined life. And all the insults are flying around. All the finger pointing is flying around, and it helps nothing. As a matter of fact, it's making it worse. Whatever successes we have had at tearing down the wall of separation and division and racism, true racism, it has been propped up a little bit more now because of all of this nonsense. And it breaks my heart. It really breaks my heart. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's pray for the Metcalf family. Let's pray for the Anthony family as well. Let's pray for Karmelo Anthony. Pray that over these next 19 to 35 years that he gets himself together. That when he finally does get out, even if it's at 54, 55, but when he finally gets out, he can then become a very productive member of society. In 35 years, let's face it, if he has to go the full 35, even if he has to go just 19 or 20 years, he's going to step out of prison and into a whole different world. Many of the people that are right now out there standing up for him are going to be dead. Time goes on. This is what I'm talking about. He's going to be stepping into a world that he doesn't know, that he won't be familiar with, that he doesn't recognize. And I pray to God that he has a true meeting with Jesus, is forgiven, repents, and like right now decides to do something positive with his life. So by the time he gets out, he's ready to, when I say take on the world, I'm talking about in a positive way. Have a positive contribution to culture and society and the world around him. That's my prayer. And that all of these people on both sides will see the foolishness, that all they're doing is driving the racism and the racial division more and more and more and more by all this nonsense. And again, it's just wickedness. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I know I'm usually this happy-go-lucky guy. Today, it's so heartbreaking because there's no real answers at the immediate. This is a horrible tragedy all the way around. All the way around. And I'm very heartbroken by it. So let's pray. Let's pray for our nation. Let's pray for both of these families. Pray for one another. And not allow this to affect us negatively, so that we can be some of the ones that can come together as one and really move ourselves forward, our culture, our society, one another, our families, our churches, our community, our country. Let's move it forward without all this sick division. So I thank you guys for listening. God bless. Let's get to praying.